Yep, we're on. You want me to be the MC? Alright, welcome to the Gavra 2019 season Q&A. We're here live at the Nürburgring, but that doesn't really matter. I'm joined here by Razy Real.
There you go, Fletcher. Nice to meet you here. Check out so we're here to hopefully sort through an answer.
Right. So the stream's just started, so we'll wait for some people to join and we'll take some questions and answer them later. Alright, I have the stream on my phone too, so we're good. So while we wait for some people to arrive, let's just talk a little bit about the new season and what it has to offer.
Yeah, hi.
You there, mate?
Yeah, hi.
Alright, so I guess I'll sort of begin with a very general overview of what's going on, and then we can sort of get into any questions or so, So, in the past, the Gavra Racing, there's been no particular structure to it. We've thought about, sort of making promotion elevation or gear or structure around it, but we haven't really found the right structure that works.
Oh, hang on 1 second. I'm just checking the YouTube stream really quick. It seems like it's not picking your voice up.
Yeah, hi.
It's picking up Slimbo's voice. Yeah. So just check real quick.
Is that allowed to be shared?
Could it be one of my settings?
Yeah, because only Razy's not being picked up.
It says here, allow your voice to be shared, always allow.
Okay, now it picked you up. You were just in a low volume.
Alright, so I'm audible.
Yeah.
Alright, so I better rewind and start again because we can't get this right. Okay, so as I said that only you heard and no one else did, we'll sort of, I'll give an overview to the entire structure and then you guys find out doubts or what questions that we can find. Alright, yeah, so Gavra Racing, we never had a structure about it really, we're just drivers and what seems to happen with the number of technical probably most championship, so you have fast and a whole bunch of guys in the middle that sort of bridge that gap at all. Whatever the race starts, the fast guys So what we've done this time is address that. Yeah, nothing to it. So here it's always going to spread. Hopefully that's what the rest of it. So how we've tried to do that is road drivers section or that I'll talk about later once special. But there's currently 3 major races.
Oh, sorry for interrupting. You have your volume set up high, do you? You could just turn it up a little bit higher so the chat could hear you better. Oh, in your settings, it should be your volume, audio. Yeah, it should be it. Sorry if it's hard to hear him in the chat, guys. I'm not sure. It's picking up me and Slimbo pretty well, but you're quite low. Hello to everyone in the chat who's here right now. We are taking questions for the new Gavra season. If you have any questions on the new season, feel free to ask in the chat and we'll answer them as quickly as possible. Just waiting for it to pick up on the YouTube stream. Here, try talking now.
Okay, how does that sound now?
1 sec. Okay, it's better. But,
I'll turn it up a bit more now.
There you go, much better.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that, guys. I'm just getting a bit of feedback here, so it's a little bit strange to talk.
That might be my fault, actually.
Huh?
That might be my fault, and my $20 mic.
Okay, so I'll just turn myself down. Can you still hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
But anyways, we got a bunch of questions coming into the chat, so which one do you want to do? You want to explain the regulations or start answering questions?
Well, hopefully everybody sort of got my explanation. Well, at least overview of the league. God, I sound like I'm stupid because I'm getting feedback through my microphone. I've taken my microphones through my headphones. I'm talking like a bit slow. Okay. All right. Well, give us a question, and I'll try to do as best as I can.
Alright, so the first question we have here is, any long distance events planned?
By that I assume one-off events. Well, the elite tier races are long, but between about 75 to 90 minutes for GP3 and LMP2. And there are endurance race. There's one endurance race in each championship, which is 3 hours.
Oh, that's it? Oh.
Yeah, well, I tell you, man, it's really hard for me to talk because I'm getting in like an instant feedback at high volume of my voice, and it's really hard to talk like that.
Alright, well, I understand if you have to make the comments short. Slimbo, do you have any other comments?
No, probably the only thing is like long distance events like the endurance races in each split, they bring out the strategy in the races, but also the quality of the drivers, showing that they can drive for long distances and maintain quality and not letting it drop. So it just shows a real testament to how they are.
Alright, well, with that, we'll move on to the next one. I'm pretty sure this is a joke question, but are there any reverse grid races?
No, it's not a reverse, not a joke. We have had reverse grid races in the past.
Oh, well, not when I was around.
Yeah, and it works out reasonably well. We have a system for doing it effectively. We thought about it this season, but we decided against it. So maybe the second season this year, like the classic season, maybe we'll do it, but not this year.
Okay. I wouldn't mind a reverse grid or two. But,
something that we thought about was doing a reverse championship order grid, which would be kind of cool.
So there are going to be LMP2 races. Well, that's for the elite category, right? Right. So we'll explain more about the individual categories a little bit later in the stream. Single seaters. No, if I'm correct, it's all sports cars and LMPs this season, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Right. I'm pretty sure the only ones offered this season besides one-off events include Touring Car, GT4, GT3, and LMP2.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Also no Group C this season. I'm sure there were rumors about that this season, but not this season. And while we wait for some more questions, you two can maybe explain a little bit more about the tier system.
Okay. While I'm talking, I'm going to take my headphones off so I can talk properly, and when I stop, I'll put them back on so I can hear you guys. Is that alright?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
Okay, cool. Alright, so I'll just begin a bit of an explanation about what was the first thing? The tier?
Yeah, just like explain the new tier structure and how you're determining who gets into what championship.
Okay. Alright, can you guys hear me okay?
One sec. Yeah, you can hear you.
Okay, cool. So we decided to put a bit more of a structure around it, as I tried to mention earlier. Now, the drivers are in 3 different levels. E1, which are the top drivers from last... Oh, let me just backtrack a bit and talk about how we sorted the drivers. Like, we only had one season... Well, we only attempted to implement this towards the end of last season. We thought we need to fix... we need to put some structure around it. How are we going to do this? So we took the points, the championship points for everybody, ranked them in order, you know, from across the 4 championships, ranked them in order, and we thought, well, that's our sort of major ranking or overall ranking for everybody from last season. We did give a bit of a weighting to those in the top 5 of their championships. So those who finished in the top 5 got a plus 10 ranking points. And we also adjusted for podium finishes. So if drivers finished on the podium more often, they jumped ahead of drivers sort of immediately above them. Within 10 points above them, if they had a higher podium finish number than a driver 10 points above them, they would go over that driver. So we try to reward sort of quality of race finish. You know, we try to balance for that rather than pure points. Someone that finishes 4th every race for the entire season will get a good number of points, but there's no podiums there. So but someone that maybe finished all, you know, around the grid a little bit more, but had a few podiums, and finished up within 10 points of that person, would go above them because of the higher quality of their finishes. So we try to you know, balance for that. So, but anyway, so where are we going to draw these lines? We want maybe 3 tiers. I think we have enough drivers for 3 tiers. So where do we draw these lines? So we thought, well, do we take one championship worth for the top drivers, being 16, top 16, or we'll make it 2, where we draw, we thought, well, maybe 1.5 might be good, we'll draw the line there, then that will allow drivers from the next tier down a bit of space for them to, you know, to fill up there if they can prove their pace in time trials. So what about the bottom? We thought, well, we'll just take the bottom 16 and we'll draw the line there, and those guys can make one championship. This is all just kind of the theory behind it. And everyone in the middle was G1. So we finished up with the E1, G1 and G2. So after that we added in the recent academy graduates. We sort of put them in G1 or G2 according to how they performed in the academy. So G1 and G2 expanded a little bit in numbers. Yeah, so that's basically how we rank the drivers. The G2 and G1, G2 drivers, we didn't rank them in order. We had them in order initially, of course, because we had to know where to draw the lines. But we decided, well, there's no point in saying someone at the top of G1 is ranked ahead of someone at the bottom of G1. There's no purpose in that. So G1 and G2, there's no official ranking order. It's just that's who you are. But we thought it would be kind of cool for the top drivers, because everybody wants to know who the top drivers are, right? So we thought we'll rank the E1 drivers, we'll rank them in order. And so the very top, the best performing driver from last season, not really the top driver, like the guy who performed best over the entire season, is ranked at the top down. We took it down 23, and I'll explain why 23 seems an odd, a strange number to use, but I'll explain that in a moment. So we ranked everybody, and I think cycling finished up quite well. That's higher than that, but
I hate to brag, but E6.
23 was an unusual number, but we saw there was a large actual points break in that point of about 20 points between ranking and ranking being for the top 20 G1 drivers. But there was an actual points break of about 20 points. Well, okay, that looks like a good place to draw the line, which is an actual place to. Yes, so that's helpful. One tier, the top tier, the elite tier. If they want to race in the elite field, one of the elite
just a second. Oh yeah, you were probably racing.
So the guys from G1 do get a chance to compete with the good guys. And at the end of the season, the points are tallied up again. We do correct and all this is laid out on the website, right? We do correct penalties, disconnection, and puts all these kinds of different variables, desirable or undesirable, as the case may be. And at the end of the season, all the drivers are ranking game according to the points, and new set of brand new set of drivers to drivers start. Now we know this is the first time we've done this, so we had to sort of draw the line to get things started. So some drivers kind of finished up maybe with their little interested because they don't know this system's coming right, so there's no incentive to try and perform to achieve the system. But we just can't look around that. We had to deal. We just had to go with what we've got. This is where you are, and if you want to continue, you'll find your correct level next season. So anyway, I did mention there's 4 classes of driver. We have E1, G1, G2. We've decided to put things up E1A, which is for the elite. If you can maintain your E1 status to the second season, you get the E1A rating, which will be rating. The drivers maintain their sort of top status for 2 consecutive seasons will pop off the top to allow other drivers to more drivers to attain E status. So hopefully we can grow the amount of drivers that have elite status. As more drivers come in, we can grow the elite level, which everyone wants to get to. So that's really something to shoot for the elite drivers this season. Because if you're going to make elite next season, then you're exempt from the system and you'll always be eligible.
So to summarize, the standings for the current Gavra drivers are on their site, right?
Yes, that's right. Yep, the ranking system on the registration page, you can see the ranking system in its entirety, all the drivers and which rank, which class they fall into as it stands at the moment. Of course, next season that will change once the season is complete and the championship's been worked out. So, but that's just for this season.
All right, so I guess I'll give my 2 cents. You perform well, you go up in tiers, and if you're the best of the best, you get bragging rights.
Yeah, pretty much.
But now time for more questions. So will the Academy be the actual date and accelerated tire wear as well?
As I understand it, that's the way Gavra personally runs the academy himself, so he takes care of that, but that's our typical way we operate, is the date of the race is the date of the event, real world is the date of the race in game. That's right, unless specified otherwise, that's the way we always do it. And what was the other part of that question?
If it will have accelerated tire wear.
Yeah, we always go for accelerated tire wear, because if we don't, then kind of tire strategy is eliminated, because the tires don't wear fast enough for shorter races. Mind you, for races up to about an hour, accelerated or not accelerated, it probably doesn't make much difference, but maybe they'll wear enough for there to be some performance drop, which is kind of what we want as well, introduce some variability towards the end of the race.
Alright, Slimbo, you've been pretty quiet so far, so maybe I'll give you the next question. So this is from definitely not Sigrazonico. You surprised to know that Le Mans will not be in the LMP2 calendar. So what's your opinion on that?
That's a deliberate thing. we had the 24-hour event at Le Mans, and I'm anticipating we will have the same thing this year. So that's why it's not in the calendar. It's going to be special for that event. Does that make any sense? I mean, that seems pretty sensible to me.
Yeah, I see. But would you be willing to replace it with Dubai?
So maybe that fella should change his name to definitely Sigrazonico. And the short answer to that is no.
Oh, well, there's always next year. So next question. How much can I brag about my elite status?
I guess you can brag while the bragging is good. We anticipate there will be quite a bit of turnover between G1 and E1. Of course, if you achieve E1A, that's a permanent bragging right, and that's going. We anticipate that will be quite difficult to achieve because if you win your championship, for example, in the Gavra tier, if you win your championship, that automatically means you've got enough points to qualify for E1. So the guys in the E1 class, if they finish in the bottom half of their championship, they'll almost definitely be not for certain, but almost sure to drop down to G1. Guys in the top half of the Gavra tier championships have got especially the top 5, the top guys in the Gavra tier championships almost certain to go up to E1. So this is another good thing about it. There will be some sort of fluidity between seasons between the two tiers. So the top guys will fly off. Obviously, the E1A will sort of fall off the top, and the push will come from the G1 drivers, and there will be some fluidity up and down. So the E1 drivers and the G1 drivers, the E1 drivers and all Gavra tier drivers, G2 included, have real incentive to try and do well, because even if you're, say, G2, if you perform well in your championship, you've got a really, really good chance of going into the elite tier next season.
Well, if we're basing it on that, I might as well brag about my status for while I have it. And yes, I'm very much aware that the game volume is a little high, so just, bear with us for a little bit. If there's something you really don't understand, then we'll be free to explain it again. Or unless they just want me talking, because I seem to be the best heard in the chat. Or either one, me or Slimbo. So you could relay the info to me, and then I'll tell the nice people. But,
okay, do we have further questions?
I'm not sure. There seems to be this one guy, not Sig, who keeps spamming the chat, so I'm not sure.
Oh, let's pay attention to him.
But back to all seriousness. Any advice for those going into the academy for the first time?
No, not exactly. I guess the general advice is that Gavra Racing, like all racing leagues, I guess, we want guys that are serious about their racing, and we don't want drivers that register for whatever event we've got on, or a championship we're running. We don't want guys that register and then drop out. That's the absolute worst, and that kills the championship for everybody. Guys that don't finish races regularly, or race half a season and drop out. It's your peers, the guys you're racing against, everybody hates it, because it's like, man, I'm only racing against 5 drivers now, and everyone needs to be there for it to be a good event. Not, obviously more than 12 drivers is absolutely ideal. So don't commit to a championship or commit to the academy if you're not going to see it out. Of course, life happens. Your shift changes at work, or there's whatever life event that means you just can't. But what really bugs us is drivers that register and they just, oh man, I've had enough, I'm out of here. That's, we really don't like that, and that's very, very disappointing. So if you're going to sign up for the long haul and put your best foot forward, and you in no time you'll be racing with guys that are doing the same, and that's a real pleasure, as many of us listening know, racing against guys that know what they're doing and can race well with you, and you can expect them to be there every week. That's just so much fun. So if you're in it, see it out. That's the advice.
Well, actually, I have some advice too. If you're going into the academy for the first time, make sure to pick the future champion as your teammate. Works for me.
Yeah, you could try that as well. That might work.
Just pick the best guy in the championship to be your teammate. Works every time. I happen to know a guy or two who could fill that slot, actually. But, we'll wait for a few more questions to roll in, but I guess me and Slimbo could ask a few questions of our own, if that's alright.
Yep.
Alright, so during the championship, obviously, there's going to be some people who can show up and some who can't, so what's your policy on driver swaps, or I guess specifically people who substitute for other drivers?
Okay, well basically substitution is free. If you can find another driver to drive for you, that's all good. Obviously we like to have drivers on the grid. That's the most important thing. However, there is a few rules and some structure around that. Before the season starts, you can tee up a driver to be your sort of permanent replacement, or 2 drivers maximum, to be a permanent replacement for your team. This doesn't operate on an individual basis. It operates on a team basis. So this driver, or these 2 drivers, can drive for you or your teammate if you happen to have to take you can't turn up for whatever reason. If you arrange that before the season, then those drivers can earn approximately 75% points on your behalf. If you arrange a replacement driver, we call those drivers those pre-arranged drivers, contracted drivers, so they're like contracted to drive for your team. That's the concept. If you don't have a driver like that, or you have to get in another driver to fill that job, then we call those casual drivers, the guys just come and go during the season sort of on a casual basis to fill in as replacements. Those drivers still earn points for you, but they earn about 50% points, because often it's very hard to find these drivers. If you pre-arrange drivers, we can get drivers on the grid. That's good, more points. If you have to scratch around trying to find somebody to fill the gap, often you can't. So if you put yourself in that position, you can't earn as many points. So you need to have your ducks in a row, so to speak, for a replacement driver before the season starts to get maximum benefit out of the system. Now, of course, you can't have a replacement drive for you. You drive one race and then he drives 15 races to complete the season for you. That doesn't work. So a replacement driver, look, actually they could in theory, but they can only earn a maximum of only earn points for a quarter of the races. So the season's 16 races long. Your contracted replacement will earn 75% points for 4 races, and after that, if he has to drive for you after that, then he'll earn 50% points, same as a casual driver. The The system works for casual, 50% per quarter of the races. If they have to drive for any races after that, then they won't get any points for you. They can still fill the grid, join the race, have a good time, but they won't actually earn any points for your championship ranking.
Okay, and to answer the most recent question in the chat, yes, there will be teammates. You can pretty much choose anyone who's in the same series as you as a teammate. And, yeah. If you don't have one, then one will pretty much be provided for you. And, yeah, that's for that. Slimbo, you've been quiet. Say something.
Hello. Something on the teammates thing is be nice to them. They might be useful later on. Just be nice.
Are you saying that from experience?
Yes.
No.
Sorry guys, if I can just comment a little bit on the teammate thing. It's really, really beneficial to have a teammate and communicate well with them, because it's often difficult to learn how to set up your car or have some sort of benchmark or something to work from if you're operating by yourself. There are several teams in Gavra Racing that have worked together over multiple seasons and have really established teammate relationships. They drive well together, they work well together, and it's much more fun preparing for a race and getting things ironed out and working together to win the team championship as well, because there's a team championship also. It's not as high, it's not as well recognized as individual championship, of course, but even if both of you are not doing so well in the individual front, you can certainly go for the team championship.
Alright. Well, I guess I'll ask another question. Are you also revamping the new penalty system for, say, there's an accident during the race that needs addressing after it? How are you going to do that now?
The penalty system remains the same. So you put in your claim after the race, and the stewards team will look at the claim and make a decision based on the video evidence. So the system is basically unchanged.
Okay. I guess another question from me. In terms of the actual season itself, what are the bonus points going to look like this season?
There won't be any bonus points. The reason for that is because of the new ranking system relies on ordering drivers according to their championship points. Bonus points in one championship and not in another. Like, the thing is, if we apply a point system, it has to be exactly the same across all championships, right, for the ranking system to function properly. Because if we have a bonus point in this championship and not in this championship, drivers in that championship have a points earning advantage, then we'll achieve a higher ranking unfairly. So we've done away with any bonus points, so everybody is on the same point system, so the ranking system can function as we intend it to function.
This is probably for the last few seasons, but there's been a lot of concern about the random weather settings. I understand that you set the weather in prior due to what it's like during that actual day, but any comments on that?
Yeah, the typical way, or the kind of the Gavra system that we've used is for the past like 3, maybe 4 seasons, is that we take the weather at the actual location the week before. So the weather is real but delayed for a week, and so drivers have a week to prepare. They know the weather a week out, so they have a week to prepare for that weather. Now random weather is it's always good. It gives a bit of let me rephrase that. Random weather is not always good, but it is in certain circumstances. it gives provides a bit of a wrinkle or a random element to the race for drivers to have to adapt to on the fly, which is it's kind of a cool thing. But however, you don't want to have to adapt to a thunderstorm, on the fly, or suddenly fog where you can't see where you're driving. We wanted to remove the extreme elements of the weather and keep the sort of the sensible elements of the random weather, which under the weather system of P-cars is random. You could get anything. If I understand, it does correct a little bit for location. For example, you don't get rain in Dubai or Willow Springs if you have random weather. That's as I understand it. I'm not too sure about that. But for example, at Zolder last season in the first Merc race, we had actual P-cars to random weather, and there was fog and it was almost undrivable. So we thought, no, we've got to change this. So what we did is we identified a reasonable spread of weather at each track at that time of the year. We looked at the weather, sort of the typical weather climate at that location, and we split it out into sort of 3, 4 or 5 slots, 3, 4 or 5 sort of options for the random weather. So for example, I can't think of one off the top of my head. Algarve for GT3 and LMP2, the first race of this season, the coming season. I think the weather options are, there's 3. One is light rain, one is medium cloud, and the other is heavy cloud. Perhaps we've done that looking at the weather of that location at that time of the year. So we've got 3 options for a random weather slot. On the day, we'll roll a dice or somehow other randomly determine which of those 3 options will be in the random weather, in our sort of pseudo-random weather slot, the Gavra random weather slot. We'll randomly determine which one of those options will be in that slot. So we get a reasonable random weather option in the slot for that track, not something crazy.
It's good to know that Mother Nature has decided by a roulette wheel. I kid.
Well, it's not entirely. It is Mother Nature, because there is a chance of this weather at that location at that time. So we're just sort of encapsulating that, trying to encapsulate that event in a random way for our purposes. So rest assured, we're not going to get anything extreme like lightning and thunderstorms and fog. There's none of that, and there's not going to be no race-wrecking stuff for most. Some drivers like that, but most don't. Most drivers can deal with a little bit of rain randomly. That happens in real life. So we think it's fair enough here for us.
But if we race in America, is there a chance of snow?
It depends on the track. And I've looked at the options for the time of the year for all the tracks in America, and snow is not I mean, in some locations, some things can happen, but they're so vanishingly small. The likelihood is vanishingly small, so I've removed them from the random weather, because the random, say we've got 3 slots, there's a 33% chance or 1/3 chance for each slot. We don't want one of those slots to be snow, for example, because in real life the chance of getting snow might be 0.1%, so that doesn't qualify for a 30% chance, right? So we've tried to be realistic about it and remove stuff that's maybe possible but highly unlikely.
I don't know. I live in America and it has snowed during some races, but I digress. I feel like the important questions aren't being asked here. So let's get back to some more questions. About the points system, have you ever thought about making changes so that wins matter more? I'm going to assume this isn't a relation to anything NASCAR related.
Well, of course, a winner gets more points, and not wins per se, but the top 5 in each class, in each championship, the top 5 will get an end of season bonus. In the elite tier, the top 5 drivers in each championship will get a plus 10 points bonus, and in the Gavra tier, top 5 drivers in each championship will get a 5-point bonus. Now, to finish in the top 5, you're certainly going to have to win some. I mean, of course, you can finish in the top 5 without winning races. You have to have very consistent high results. But the top 2, 3 drivers, 4 drivers, 5 drivers will have at least one race win. So for those at the end of, not on the day, but at the end of the season, the guys that win the races will get the bonus points. Let me just qualify that a little bit. These aren't bonus points according to the championship. These are bonus ranking points, not bonus championship points. Right, so I talked about no bonus points in the point system, which is correct, but these are applied after the point system is finished operating on top of the championship points.
Okay, let's see. For the LMP2 races, they're obviously a lot longer and stuff, but do you think the heavy focus on strategy will make the best drivers shine better?
Well, the best driver should shine better under any circumstances. I guess race strategy is something that I pride myself on, actually, is thinking through a race very carefully, and I have performed well in, I'm just using myself as an example here, I know other drivers have done this as well. You achieve in a race purely because of the strategy you put in place before the race, not because of how fast you are. And that's a really satisfying thing to have happen, because you know you're not the fastest driver, but you get a good result, maybe not win, but maybe podium or high up there ahead of drivers that are faster, because of your strategy you pulled it off and it worked out. So having, I guess the larger question, or the larger answer to that is, it's so important to have a good race strategy, because if you don't, then you're subject to all kinds of issues. So you have to think through all the scenarios, have pit strategies for everything. How much fuel am I going to put in if this happens? What type do I need to make a tyre change if this happens? If I damage this, do I need to repair this? All these kinds of things are really important to think through for race strategy. So the broader sort of overview is being a good driver about pace, or is being a good driver about all these things? I would say being a good driver is about all these things. So having a good race strategy is part of that, and performing well as a result of that, that's the most satisfying thing, one of the most satisfying things in racing.
Well, if I may interject my philosophy on how to be successful, it's a 3-step process actually. 1, don't wreck. 2, don't wreck. And 3, it's pretty easy. 1, don't wreck.
No, you're absolutely right. That's sort of where I came from. I decided long ago that I don't really care how fast I go. The number one thing is don't put the car into the wall or hit any other drivers. If I can do that, race after race after race, then I'll get faster naturally. That happens to everybody. But if I can keep the car off the wall or off other drivers, then I'm automatically at an advantage to other drivers that can't do that. So that's entirely respectable, and that's the greatest strategy in the world.
Take it from a personal experience. You will have an accident once or twice during the racing season. You will mess up even though you felt like it wasn't your fault, and you will immediately feel instant regret, but get out of it better knowing that you came out better than the other guy who wrecked. But at the end of the day, just be careful and just check your surroundings when you're racing around another person, and you'll find a good way forward, and you'll be recognized.
Yeah, that's right. It's always best to err on the side of caution when you're around other drivers. The races are long, and if you don't finish, you can't get the points. So finishing is finishing is the priority, not winning the race. I know winning the race is important, and it is for the fastest guys, and if you're one of those guys, you know who you are. But for drivers like me and a few others, you know, we're not necessarily the fastest, but we get our results through playing sensible and trying to do the right thing by everybody. Yeah.
So, a question on the tires. Are you allowed to use different tires on the front and rear axis, or do you have to have all four of the same tires?
It's open. Anything's open. The restrictions are as they're laid out in the championship rules. Outside of that, you can put 4 different tires on if that's what you wanted to do, if that made you go faster. A typical strategy is for the longer races is maybe have hard tires on the front, soft tires on the back. The front tires wear a bit quicker and you can go longer perhaps, but you have to balance that against pace, of course, and maybe an extra pit stop. It just depends on how things work out. But no, it's open what you can do with your car. You can have any tires you like on it.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. If you can win a race using hydraulics, you can do it. But, yes, obviously the LMP series is pretty much the pinnacle of racing this season compared to the other ones. And obviously it's going to have a lot of strategy and all these other elements, considering that the tire wear is going to be a little bit different working in LMP2. The tires seem to wear a little bit more than the other series. So, regarding that, what do you expect for the LMP2 season? And we'll get to the other season shortly.
I expect it to be very fast. It looks like the fastest guys in Gavra Racing have signed up for the LMP2, and so we expect it to be very competitive at the high end, which is really good, and it's one of the things the ranking system and the tier system was designed to do. So it's one reason why I registered for LMP2 is because the best of the best are going to be there, and I want to see exactly where I stand. Now I hope I don't come away from that with a red face, but yeah. So, but with the GT3, it's a very similar situation with the GT3. We have good drivers there, and so the other championships will also be very competitive because of the ranking system and the tier system that we've got now. We expect all championships to be, I mean, it doesn't matter if one championship is faster than another. That's not the point. The point is that guys can race against someone that's like them and hopefully have more fun instead of just watching guys drive off into the distance. I mean, that's a little bit soul crushing at times, and we've all had that, but hopefully this addresses that a little bit more. There's always faster guys and slower guys in championships, but hopefully the things are compressed up a little bit more and we can all enjoy some closer racing, which would be nice.
Alright, another question from me. What's your policy on blue flags and letting other drivers go?
Yeah, get out of the way and let them go. It's always sort of a problem, blue flags. You know, the guy that's trying to get past you is in a hurry. Obviously, he's got guys chasing him, but you're in a race also. You're trying to catch the guy in front of you, usually, so you don't want to pull over and let this guy pass if you can at all help it, because it affects your pace. But you know, the overarching policy is if the guy's behind you, if you're on a blue flag, get out of his way as soon as possible. Sort of the flip side to that is the guy who's lapping needs to understand this, that the guy who's being lapped needs to try and get out of the way in a safe. You can't just pull over the side, drive off the side of the track at any random moment to let you pass. He has to do it on track in a sensible way. So often a little bit of patience is required. do it on a straight preferably. Let's just button off the throttle, let the guy pass, or drive around the outside of the corner, flash your lights to let him know that either let him know that you're there, or let the guy behind you know that you know he's there and you're about to get out of his way. Yeah, so a little bit of sensible caution and patience is needed by everybody in these situations.
Alright, we'll take a couple more questions up to the top of the hour and probably a little bit past that. So, about disconnections and DNFs. So, like I said earlier, you will have accidents and there will be times where you bend it into a wall. Have you ever considered a system where, how about instead of all 16 races counting, you take the best 12 or so races of that season as your best result and count that? Is that a system that you would be willing to implement?
We looked at it, and Gavra and I talked about this. We were initially in favour of it as a concept, but yeah, the problem with that is that guys can, you know, we don't want guys to quit races. It encourages people to quit. Oh, I'm not doing well, I'll just quit, I can drop it. Now, we don't want that. That's the absolute worst thing in the world, you know, for our league. So every race counts. So you've got to be in. If you want to succeed, you have to be in every race. Now, disconnects. Of course, everybody gets disconnects. We cannot do anything about that. But in the ranking system at the end of the season, for a disconnect, if we feel somebody has disconnected fairly, actually it's a genuine disconnect is what I'm saying. If someone has a genuine disconnect, they'll get +2 points that's equal to a 15th place finish. So it's if they were last and they disconnected, they get the same points as the 15th place. So an honest disconnect or a genuine disconnect will get a small sort of participation bonus, I guess you could call it. So you will get points for that. But you know, you can simulate a disconnect. You can yank the bloody LAN cord out of your PS4 or turn off the router or whatever to simulate a disconnect in your rage after you've put it into the wall. So we will be looking at that. You know, if a car goes into the wall and then the driver immediately disconnects, man, that looks pretty suspicious. So we'll class that as a race quit. So, you know, fair and honest participation and getting into it fairly is what we want. So this is why we don't want to have guys dropping races. It gives a free license just to rage quit or disconnect or you know, simulate a disconnect or whatever they want. So every race counts. So an honest disconnect gets a reward, small reward, but we don't want to have drivers you know, just quitting and being able to drop that quit just because they were annoyed or put the car into the wall because of their mistake, you know.
So going to the lower tiered Gavra seasons, G1, G2, which will be racing GT4 and touring cars this season, right?
Yeah.
So obviously that'll be the season where a lot of newcomers are coming out from the academy and showing what they got against the regulars. Kind of like what you did for the LMP2 season. What do you expect for those series?
Well, it's always interesting to see new drivers, and you know, you get some unexpectedly fast guys coming out of the academy. It always happens, and this is one of the reasons why we have the tier system. The faster guys that have performed, not necessarily faster, but the guys that have performed well in the academy will be classed as G1 and will be able to have a crack at the elite tier through time trials. So the guys that didn't perform so well in the academy will be in G2, and they'll be able to test themselves in the Gavra tier. But anyway, back to your sort of original question. We expect some good racing because there are good drivers in G1 that didn't make the elite tier for whatever reason, because of some poor results. So there are some good guys registered in G1 that probably should be in the elite tier, and there are drivers. I know there's one driver that's registered in Gavra tier, one E1 driver registered in Gavra tier because that's what he wants to do. He wants to race in that particular championship. So there are some very good drivers there, and I expect there to be some good pace and some hotly contested championships, that's for sure.
Alright, before we get to some of the final questions, this is kind of just a personal thing, but and I'll explain it if you don't understand, but here in America we have this term called bushwhacking, which is when a higher tier driver goes into a lower tiered series and usually dominates it. So what would be your policy on that?
Yes, that's something that we considered. We considered reserving one of the Gavra tier, or setting it aside and not allowing E1 driver to drop down to one of those championships. Our point of view on this was that the guys that make E1 want to race with the best, right? And it's going to be plainly obvious if guys just drop down to dominate a championship. Now, I don't anticipate it being that way, that washing out in the final championship at all. There's not guys good enough that will actually dominate championship, because there are plenty of G1 and G2 drivers that are very, very good, and it won't happen in that kind of obvious way, I wouldn't think. And as I said, we're relying on E1 drivers to do the right thing and try and stick to their championship, but we didn't want to restrict. We didn't want to say, you know, one of the benefits of being an E1 is that you've got the status. I can do what I like, right? This is my reward. I can do whatever I can race whichever championship I want. That's the reward. That's one of the rewards you get. So you can choose whichever one you like. Now we want drivers to use that fairly and wisely, and we anticipate them doing that, yes.
Okay, I believe you mentioned, is very brief, about if you rage quit, the kind of penalty that you'd get. I'm sorry, if you could just kind of explain that a little bit more.
Okay, well, there's not necessarily rage quit, just a driver that flat out quits a race will get minus 10 points on their ranking at the end of the season. That's just a flat out quit. As I said, a disconnect will get a plus 2 sort of a participation bonus, because I had this 2 times last season. I was at Fuji in the pro car. I was coming second. I was staying ahead of Flip. I was maintaining my gap to Flip back in third. I fought for that for 20 minutes. 4 minutes from the end of the race, I disconnected. Right? Now, how soul crushing is that? So that happens sometimes, right? And I get nothing for that event. You know, drivers in that situation, they bust their asses for the whole race, disconnect, and they walk away with nothing, and that's just not right. So we try to at least give something. If you are in that situation, at least, you know, you tried your best and you get something as a reward. It's only 2 points, but it's something. So drivers that quit, rage quit, doesn't matter, it's the same thing. Drivers that actually quit their race with no good reason, I crashed the car, I can't be bothered, I'm quitting, that's minus 10 points. So with the simulating a disconnect, you can obviously, you get upset, you can just pull the land cord out of your unit, and that will register as a disconnect in the system, because it's been disconnected, you haven't actually left the session. So looking at drivers that crash there, this happens quite a lot. If you look at these situations, they crash the car, immediately they disconnect. So that's that coincidence is highly unlikely. Well, no, it's not unusual, because there could be some issue where the car's gone off the track, but you know, we're going to look at those. I'm not saying that in every case, but we're going to look at those on a case-by-case basis. But the point is, you know, you need to stay in the race to get points to try and move up the system. We hope the system will take care of a lot of this stuff. And you know, this Gavra Racing, man, we don't have a lot of guys that do this. They tend not to hang around for very long, and if they do this, they won't finish up in E1. So that's for sure. So eventually they'll disappear, and that's okay by us.
For the most part, in terms of disconnections and stuff like that, I mean, there's the obvious factors that affect internet connection, stuff like that, weather, and obviously what your actual connection is and stuff like that. But, you know, to prevent disconnections in the future, just like periodically check your router and stuff, make sure it's not collecting dust in some corner. Usually ask if anyone else near you is using your same internet or something like that, because I know from personal experience, if there's like more than one person using the internet, it will sometimes interrupt you. So, you know, just take as many precautions as you can, and if you do happen to disconnect, it happens, and you can only move on.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, Shai, if you do disconnect mid-race, what's the rule on rejoining? Is that allowed or?
Oh, well, actually, in a conjunction with that...
I don't think you can. You can't accept your invite and rejoin mid-race. Can you do that? I don't think you can do that.
Well, actually, I was just about to add, there was a quick question. If you get disconnected during qualifying, can you rejoin before the race starts?
Yes. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, that's no trouble. But any qualifying's very short, right? 10 minutes or 15 minutes in some cases. So the likelihood of you actually getting another qualifying time in is very low. So you might have to, if you disconnect and rejoin, you'll have to face the back of the grid, unfortunately.
Okay, but if I'm correct, you can't rejoin, like the game itself doesn't let you rejoin during the race. That's just kind of how the game is, but you can rejoin during qualifying as long as there is time. Like if there's like 2 minutes left, you probably won't get in unless you have really fast loading times. But if you have like 5 minutes, you can get in and maybe set a lap time, but it really just depends on when you disconnect.
Something I want to mention about the GT3 Championship. We had this last GT3 season, there was some issues raised with fuel usage, tank size and fuel usage, and it worked out that some cars have a definite fuel consumption and tank size advantage over others. Now it's not much, but it's enough to make a difference. For example, the races in GT3 this season are 175 minutes, which works out to be, not 175 minutes, 175 kilometers, which works out to be approximately, depending on the track, between about 70 to 80 minutes, more than likely. Now, as an example, the McLaren will go that distance with no refueling. BMW M6, which is the worst car for this, definitely needs a fuel stop to go that distance. So what we've done is we've tried to eliminate the fuel advantage by all GT3 cars can have a maximum of 60 litres on the grid. So then they can work out their strategy from there. So what we're trying to do is that every car has to stop. I mean, every car will probably have to stop for tyres, but they'll have to put fuel in as well. How much will vary from car to car, but they will have to factor in some fuel to finish the race. So they must be on the grid with 60 litre maximum in the tank. Now the next question is, how do we check that? There's the official way, which we've decided on, and there's also an unofficial check. So the unofficial check, which is quite easy, is for any commentator or director to go down the grid and check the fuel levels in the cars. They can see the speedo there, right? They can check the fuel in the cars. Now, that may not happen every race, but it's the driver's responsibility. This is the official check. It's the driver's responsibility in GT3 is to screenshot their screen while they're sitting on the grid. With the red lights there, just hit the button, take a screenshot, and submit it to their chat after the race, so everybody can see their fuel level while they were sitting on the grid.
For
So did that make any sense?
For clarification, it's 60 liters. You can't have more than that at the beginning of a GT3 race, correct?
That's it. Yeah.
Okay, and just before the race starts, you should take a picture, depending on what your share button or whatever button you use to take pictures. You do that, and you send it to them, and if you do that, then you're good for the rest of the race.
You don't do it while you're on the grid. I mean, while you're sitting on the grid, the lights are going out. You don't have time to submit anything to any chat, right? So you just take the screenshot while you're sitting there. It's just a button push. It's no hassle. Everybody will get into the habit easy enough. We had to do this with the pit limiter. It was a hassle at first, but everybody got into the habit very quickly. So you make sure you have your screenshot button assigned when you're sitting on the grid looking at the lights. You can't do this from the setup screen, right? Because that's of no use, because that can be changed after you've taken the screenshot. It must be done while you're sitting on the grid waiting for the lights. Hit the button, take the screenshot, forget about it. After the race, submit that screenshot immediately after the race, submit that screenshot to the chat, so everybody in the championship can check everybody else's fuel level.
And for clarification, don't accidentally push the button so much that you go into another screen, because then you'll just get stalled on the grid. And also just, remember to do it after the race.
Yeah, of course.
But there's 10 minutes left in the actual race, so unless there's any other questions, we'll just supplement with questions of our own.
Can I just say something for Gavra? His PS4 busted towards the end of last season. He missed, I think, the last 2 or 3 races or something. And Marco's HLB had the great idea of getting us all together and putting some money in and getting a PS4 Pro for him. And Marcos, that was a fantastic idea, and we thank you very, very much for that. It was brilliant. And also for Red 1528, who organised the logistics of it all. He went and bought the thing and shipped it, and he took care of all that, because he's also in Italy, of course. And to all the drivers out there that contributed to that, Gavra's a very, very humble guy. If you've known him for any length of time online, you know this. He's very quiet, he's very humble. He's about the nicest guy we have around here. And he greatly appreciated it, and it was just a marvellous thing that everybody did there. He deserves it. He puts so much time and effort into this league. It's unbelievable in what he does for us. And this is another reason that we really, us in the admin, we really hate guys that sign up for championships and quit, and they quit races or quit halfway through a race, or they don't complete the championship, or Gavra puts so much into this, and he puts his heart and soul into it, and drivers that do this, it's a real disappointment. So giving back to Gavra was something that was quite special for those guys that contributed. It was quite special to do that, and it's some small, it's a PS4 Pro, for goodness sake, but it's a small reward for what he does for us and the league and the environment he's created for us. So I know many drivers are very, very thankful, me included, thankful to him for what he's put together, and he's given us so much pleasure and joy and happiness and all that kind of stuff. So thanks, Gavra, and you deserve it. You really deserve it, mate, that and more. So well done, everybody, for doing that for him.
Alright, so I assume that most of the people who are left here in the stream are Gavra regulars, or if anything, Academy runners and stuff like that. So, while we exit out with the final 2 or so questions, obviously, the new tier list is something that everyone's gonna get used to, but in terms of actually moving up and down tiers, how's that gonna work?
It's purely on your points at the end of the season. At the beginning of each season, everybody starts on 0 points. So your points tally, or points total at the end of the season, everybody's ordered on that. So the top point scorer is number 1, the person who scored the least points is down the bottom, and everybody's ranked in order. And then we'll draw the lines between E1 G1 and G1 G2. That's how it will work. The actual points don't matter. It doesn't matter what the points are. Everyone starts at 0, and then we just order at the end of the season, put everybody in order, so it doesn't matter what the points is. So between seasons, if you're G1, for example, at the start of the season where you've got 0 points, if you perform really well in your championship, then you'll be at the higher end of that scale, and you'll likely get into E1 next season because you've accumulated enough points to do so. Enough points in relation to other drivers. Sort of the corollary to that is that an E1 driver that doesn't perform well will have fewer points than probably well-performing G2 and well-performing G1 drivers, so he's likely to have the line between E1 and G1 drawn above him, or God forbid might even be in G2 if he scores, if he doesn't score enough points. But always, G1 drivers always have the chance to compete in the elite tier through the limited spots available that they can time trial for. So even if you don't get enough points for G1, you can still have a crack at the elite tier through time trials at the beginning of next season.
Right. So, in other words, if you want to keep your elite status, you gotta prove that you're good enough to actually keep it, or else you pretty much will drop, and, But
yeah,
to those who can
that's
actually...
Exactly right. There will be this bit of a yo-yo effect between the levels, particularly E1 and G1. There will be a bit of a yo-yo there, and that's why for anyone that can maintain that for 2 seasons, that's really worth something, because it's going to be difficult. So they will get their E1A and be exempt from the system, be outside the system, and that means the guys that are at the top end of the yo-yo, if you like, will move up a little bit and probably get a greater shot of sticking there themselves. So that's kind of the way that drivers will be able to move up hopefully.
So in the final 5 minutes, I guess me and Slumber will just give a quick summation of everything, and if there's one last question in the chat that needs to be answered, we'll answer it. So this season, obviously new guys and new faces and new places. We got GT4 touring cars, GT3s and LMP2s spanning around 16 rounds?
16, yep.
Yeah, 16 rounds going all around the world. There's one major endurance race in LMP2, if I'm correct, it's the 3 hours of Spa.
LMP2 and G3.
Okay, both of those will have major endurance races. There will be one-off races during the season that anyone can join and have fun in that. And other than that, just remember that when it comes to racing, just always have fun and respect those around you, even if they may wreck you.
Absolutely.
You can always wreck them back next week. I'm kidding, don't do that.
Okay, alright. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk about the new season. It might be a little bit confusing at first, but it's all there on the website, and of course Gavra and I are open for PMs. Message us anytime, any questions. It's no problem at all. We're here to help, that's for sure.
Alright, and with that, I am Cypher Knight 77 coming in from America at 4:20 in the afternoon. Go on, say something.
I'm Slimbo from the UK.
What's the time, Slimbo?
Oh yeah, and 9:20.
Okay, I guess I'm Razy Real from New Zealand, and the time is 10:20 on Saturday morning. And I have to go and have coffee with my parents after this.
4:20, Sig just wrote in the chat, but yes, that has been the 2019 season update, and we look forward to seeing all of you nice people on the track and hopefully racing against you. I know that the three of us will also be on the track, and we'll hopefully be raising some hay as we go through all 4 of these championships. And with that, this has been Gavra Racing, and have a good day. See you later.